By George, it's Sir Adam Beck.
It does me good to see you. My name is Beck.
John, can you come here?
Adam Beck. And I am remembered as the founder of public power, public electrical power in Ontario. I was for many years a member of this provincial legislature. By any description, a capitalist and a Tory. I spoke from these very steps in 1906 as the campaign for public electrical power was born. And I am proud to be here today. I didn't bother with humility then, and I won't bother with it now. I gave my life to the fight for public power, decades of bitter conflict. I gave up my business, my home, my everything. I knew that if we failed, the hands of the robber barons would be around our throats. Then, as now, there can be no middle ground. Do not give an inch to the swindlers of private power. You now carry the banner. Do not falter. Stay the course. Dig in for a long, hard fight, and you can win. We did it then. You can do it now. I am honored to be here, and I will be introducing the speakers in today's program. Our first speaker is Cec Makowski of the CEP. Cec.
Thank you, Sir Adam Beck. Isn't he looking good for his age? I want to start off, friends, by first of all thanking Howard Hampton and the New Democrats. They had the foresight to get out in front of this issue before the implications on the average Ontarian was really known. And they stuck with it, and the message that they're delivering today is resonating with Ontarians across this province. And their concern and commitment to the issues and the interests of the average Ontarian will certainly serve Ontario well when they become the next government of Ontario and when Howard Hampton becomes the Premier. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Paul Connor and the Ontario Electricity Coalition. They have really shown how a group of varied and disparate voices can come together around a single issue and make a difference. And they've been delivering their message across this province and have convinced 50 some odd municipal councils to pass resolutions in opposition to the privatization of Hydro One and the deregulation of this provincial asset. I also want to thank CUPE, who partnered with CEP in our legal challenge that was successful, not in stopping Hydro One, not in stopping the privatization of Hydro One, but it gave us an opportunity to engage the public in Ontario in a dialogue and allow them to understand the issues, and they have turned around and shown their opposition in poll after poll as recently as this week, where the numbers have gone up, the numbers in opposition to the privatization of hydro. And that is after the 49% option was known. It may come as no surprise to you today that I'm going to talk about power, but I'm not going to talk about the generation of power, nor am I going to talk about the transmission of power. Today I'm going to talk about the abuse of power. The abuse of power by this government and two successive premiers. A government that fought two successive election campaigns and never once mentioned the issue of the privatization of Hydro One. And that's an abuse of power. In fact, they had the gall between the two elections, in the course of the discussion around the Ontario Electricity Act, to say they weren't going to privatize Hydro One. They said that in this legislature, they said it outside of the legislature, and in the course of our court challenge, the government's position was, well, you can't hold a minister accountable for what he said a couple of years ago. That's an abuse of power. We are here today, sisters and brothers, friends, we are here today to tell you that this government has been dishonest from day one. They had the gall under former Premier Harris on the last day of the session before Christmas, as members were getting up to go home for their Christmas break, to introduce the idea of privatizing Hydro One without even discussing it with his own caucus. We then saw that the government was intent upon sliding this legislation through with no public scrutiny, with no public input, before the session, before the legislature was reconvened in the spring. And at that point, God bless him, Justice Arthur Gans intervened. He intervened and he said that not only is there no justification for the sale of Hydro One, not only have you not made your case to the Ontario public, despite our repeated efforts to have studies, to invite them to show us the rationale behind their decision, he said there's no legal authority to sell Hydro One. You, government, have been caught with your hands in the cookie jar, and from that point to now, they've come up with option after option, and most recently the 49% option, where they're now going to keep 51% of control in public hands. But let me tell you, the Ontario public has not been fooled by that. They know that when you introduce any element of for-profit in the system, when you introduce a system that it no longer has exemption from the tax implications, when you sell 49%, you still kick in all the negative implications of NAFTA. The people of Ontario know that, and they've said in the most recent polls that's not on. I can tell you also that the citizens of Ontario have recognized that half of a bad idea is still bad. So here we are in this last week, a run-up to what the government is attempting to do with Bill 58 inside this legislature. And in the last week, I can tell you that we have been in the courtroom, cuping ourselves just down the street to defend the appeal of the government against Justice Gans' decision. And we don't know how that's going to turn out, but interestingly enough, one of the government's positions in there was that they needed to have a repeal of Justice Gans' decision because they wanted the skids greased to sell not only Hydro One, but also OPG, Ontario Power Generation. That's never been an issue before, but they disclosed that in the courtroom last week. I can tell you in the last week also I made a presentation in this very building in a committee room to the Legislative Committee reviewing Bill 58, and that I can tell you is an exercise in futility, knowing that the government intends to ram it through. And here we are facing a vote probably in the next 24 hours in this legislature, and we don't know how that vote is going to turn out. We have a strong suspicion how it's going to turn out, but I would hope that at some point over the next 24 hours, just a handful of Tory backbenchers, maybe a half a dozen Tory backbenchers, could find the courage to listen to the polls that show that the people of Ontario are opposed to this idea. I would hope that they could find the courage to listen to the municipal councils in their own constituencies that have passed resolutions saying this is a bad idea. And I would hope that they can find the courage to listen to hundreds, and in many cases thousands, of faxes and phone calls that have been made to their constituency offices in the last week, being expressed by their traditional supporters saying this is a bad idea. I can hope and pray that they have the courage to reflect that in a vote against this bill tomorrow. But if they can't, my friends, I hope they have the good sense to go to the washroom. Because I can tell you those backbenchers will be held accountable by the citizens of Ontario for the passage of this bill. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what's done in that legislature. It doesn't really matter what was said in committee rooms or in courtrooms. What matters today in this province is what's being said in living rooms and dining rooms and rec rooms and kitchens across the province, where people with one voice are saying, Ernie Eaves, hands off Hydro One. Don't sell 100%, don't sell 49%, don't even sell 1% of Hydro One. You don't have a mandate to do it. And they're saying also, that if you think you can grease the skids of a sale of Hydro One by using your overwhelming majority in the face of huge opposition, that's an abuse of power. And they're saying to Mr. Eaves, if you want to use your majority to ram Bill 58 through without ever having sought a mandate, that's an abuse of power. And if you want to legitimize what the courts have said is illegal by using your overwhelming majority, that's an abuse of power. And citizens across this province, from Cornwall to Kenora, are saying, Mr. Eaves, if you go ahead with this, you and 58 of your friends, 56 of your friends, I'm sorry, and you and your Tory caucus will pay for that abuse in defeat in the next election. Thank you, my friends, and remember, power for the people.